And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. The presumptive Republican nominee, Donald Trump, says that now that he's what you're watching is the gradual evolution, and actually it's not so gradual; it's happening quite rapidly right in front of us, of Donald Trump from I would have said a year ago, before he jumped into politics, from being a rather pragmatic businessman, blowhard and a self-promoter and all that kind of stuff, but basically, a pragmatic businessman trying to save money. For example, listing the value of one of his golf courses as a little over $1 million, and then when he becomes a politician, claiming it's worth much, much more than that, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to global warming, this is fascinating. Callie posted this over on DU earlier today. Trump warns of dire effects of global warming and application to build seawall. He's got this golf course in Scotland, and they've filed Ireland, excuse me. Trump International Golf Links Ireland has filed a permit for a seawall specifically to deal with the effects of global warming, of ocean level rise. So, but, because he's a Republican now, and the Koch brothers, made their money the old-fashioned way, they inherited it, but their father made his money with Joe Stalin in the and Adolf Hitler in the oil business. Not sure I think they built one refinery for the Nazis. In any case, it's certainly the Stalin stuff. And ExxonMobil, has known that global warming was the product of their product since the 1970s, but it chose, instead of trying to figure out ways to reduce emissions or make fossil fuels less harmful to the environment, they funded an anti-science campaign, or a phony science campaign, which continues to this day, and has basically most of the Republican Party by the throat. You want our money? You want a couple $100 million? You want, hey, Mr. Average Congressperson, you want a couple 100,000? You want our money? You got to deny that climate change is real. And so now Donald Trump is out there saying, well, it's a hoax and it's BS and it's pseudoscience, and I'm not a big believer in global warming. Those are all direct quotes. Recently, not a tune he was singing a year ago, when as a developer he was, and still is, having to deal with building things along seacoasts where global warming and climate change are affecting things. So anyway, I find it fascinating. By the way, at the bottom of the hour, Professor Erwin Cheriminski is going to be with us. He is the founding dean and distinguished professor of law, and the Raymond Pike professor of the First Amendment law at the University of California, Irvine School of Law. And we're going to be talking about suing for climate change action. So I just want to put that on your radar screen. This is one of the reasons that I think that this is one of the most consequential elections in our history, is because we are starting to see very rapid amplification. Let me define amplification for a moment. If you say somebody's got, pretty much all of us actually, if you were to pull our blood or, take a swab out of our mouth or some other intimate part, or even our hands, you would find all kinds of really scary bugs. I mean, you'd find E. coli and Listeria and stuff like that, things that we all know about. You would also, you would just find, flesh-eating strep, and just all kinds of stuff. And the simple reality is that most of us, we also have good bacteria all over us, which fights with the bad bacteria. Plus, we have an immune system that fights it off. So, say you're walking around loose, and you've, I didn't mean that in any way other than just, you're walking around, and you have measurable amounts of, let's say, tuberculosis in your body. I've been exposed to TB many times. I've never tested positive for it, but I have been in, particularly in India. You know, I've been in areas where literally 1 in 10 people had tuberculosis. It was all over the place. And, you know, apparently my body just fought off whatever exposure it was, because it was just, a few bugs here and there. So let's say you've got some, a couple dozen TB bugs in you, and they start growing, and your immune system doesn't knock them out immediately, and then they become a few thousand, then a few 100,000, and then a few million, and now you're starting to feel a little bad, and then suddenly that million becomes a billion, and then the billion becomes 30 billion or 50 billion tuberculosis germs in your body. There's a curve that infection follows. It's like, when you first get the flu, you get the, I don't feel so good. And then by the second or third day, it's like, oh my God, I can't get out of bed. Right? That's where the bug has exploded in its population. And in science and in medicine, it's referred to as amplification. And what it really is you're going from a linear increase, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to a logarithmic increase, 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, or even worse. And this, we're now seeing this in the Arctic. We're seeing this in terms of temperature rise, and we're seeing it in terms of the loss of sea ice. And the two are, of course, related, because sea ice reflects sunlight and thus reflects heat back out into outer space. When the ice is gone, the seawater is, dark blue or almost black, and it absorbs that heat rather than reflecting it, which then melts more ice. And the reflection from the ice is called the albedo effect. And so we're seeing amplification happening right now with regard to global climate change. Not just in the Arctic. We're seeing it with regard to glaciers. We're seeing it. They just identified a new Arctic or Antarctic. This is the South Pole, a new Antarctic shelf of ice on the eastern side. I mean, everybody's been looking at Western Antarctica. This is on the eastern, or maybe I've got my sides backwards, but you get the point. This was literally last week's news. I mean, it was a big story last week. It's brand new. This is an area that's huge. And if this particular area goes, you're looking at, 3 to 6 feet of sea level rise around the world tomorrow morning. And they're saying, we don't know how fast this is going, but what's happening is it's melting much, much faster than anybody predicted. And so, our oceans are half dead right now. A third of all bird species in the United States within 20 years will be extinct as a result of climate change. I mean, this is producing really serious consequences, which is why I think that this election right now, which is where I started with this rant, I think that this election right now is one of the most consequential in my lifetime and in yours. And it's why when, people like Donald Trump or the Republican Party in general minimize things like climate change. I mean, yeah, you can minimize, you can go along with the NRA on guns. It's only going to lead to the death of, another 20 or 30,000 Americans unnecessarily, and lots of children and all that kind of thing. If you're minimizing the effects of climate change, though, you could be talking about the deaths of billions of people worldwide. I mean, we know right now that what really fueled the Syrian conflict was over 1 million farmers got driven off their land because of the massive droughts that are related to climate change. California can deal with it. They've got so far, they've got a well-developed and sophisticated infrastructure. Syria couldn't. And then you get, Trump. It's pretty amazing.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.